Occult Confessions is brought to you commercial-free through the generous support of our patrons. Visit occultconfessions.com and click on Donate to help keep the history of the occult on the digital airwaves.
I begin my cultural history courses by reminding my students that we can't speak in general terms about any group. All women, all men, all Scots, all Australians, all black people, all white people. All people are unique, and hateful thought begins by generalizing and then othering. To that end, I think it's important to say that not all white people are racist. Today, we'll begin a conversation about some white people who are definitely racist. But I disagree with some ideologues on the far left who argue that all white people are inherently racist. That having been said, and knowing that there are some white people in the world who hold racist views and have committed crimes against humanity based on those views, it becomes incumbent on white people to oppose white supremacy wherever we encounter it. White people shouldn't feel guilty for anything we discuss in this episode, but they should be aware of it so that they can do something about it. It's a bit like having a crazy uncle who's going around setting fire to everybody's azaleas. We'd be worried the rest of the neighborhood thinks we hate flowering shrubs too, or that we at least condone our uncle's behavior. We might not feel responsible for all those burnt flower gardens, but we would feel responsible for getting our uncle to quit, or at least helping others to understand that we're not on board with this whole anti-azalea ideology. Not knowing our uncle is up to this destruction of plants and property is in a certain way worse, because our neighbors are glancing bitterly at us and we don't know why. In the case of white supremacy, the stakes are, of course, considerably higher, and the crimes much more horrific and deadly than azalea abuse, which makes it that much more important that we speak out against these hateful philosophies. Let's continue that work now, here on Occult Confessions. I am your host, Dr. Robert C. Thompson, the Supreme Hierophant of the Secret Order of Alchemical Actors, joined this day by our Grand Master of the Order, Olivia Litterall, bookending our cult conversation.
Hello!
Welcome back. How are things?
It's me, and I'm here.
That's how things are?
Yep.
Things
Very
are coming
musical.
up, Olivia.
Oh, we can't do that.
Well, you can do a couple lines.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
And you may remember our shepherd of the verse, Sam Steen.
How's it going, everyone? Good to be back.
And Sam, you've undergone a religious conversion since last we spoke.
I guess like
And a degree.
deconversion. I don't even.
Deconversion,
Yeah,
yeah.
deconversion, and now I'm just chilling.
Yeah, because our listeners know you from our Jesus episodes.
Yeah, I was Jesus. I was like the confused and concerned Protestant boy. Because like at that time, I was coming to Rob on a regular basis, being like, I don't know anything. Like my religion seems wrong, but I like my religion.
Mm-hmm.
But then I did 2 years at Salisbury, and I got my philosophy degree, and far more questions and far more arguments came up for alternative religious ideals, alternative philosophical ideas. And I just went, I believe in God, but I don't know what that means. And I don't know anything about this Jesus guy, and I need to hear more about it, you know? I looked into textual criticism a lot. I like Bart Ehrman, and he basically just kind of blew the Bible open for me as far as inerrancy goes. And now I'm here doing tarot in my free time.
Nice. I mean, here's the thing. I want to say this so that everyone hears that listens to this show. I did not deconvert Sam Steen. Listen to his story closely. We talked, and then he left, and then he took philosophy classes, and then he changed his mind about this. I'm not here to turn Christians.
I can be a witness. I was in your office many a times when Sam would be there being like, Rob, I don't know about this.
Yeah, it's frustrating.
Yeah.
Like, doubt.
Doubt is frustrating. So is that movie with Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Rip.
Let's get into it. Let's pledge it out. We, the members of the Secret Order of Alchemical Actors, do solemnly commit ourselves to a full and honest telling of the history of the occult as far as we know it. Do that voodoo that you do so well, Olivia, and open the Order of Confessors.
We're opening. We're opening. It's open. We're opening. It's open. We're opening. It's open.
It felt urgent and then celebratory.
That's kind of how I feel like a lot of
That's how your day
times.
is?
Yeah. Urgent, but then celebratory.
Let's welcome some patrons. Rogue S, Lumber L, Simon G, Mr. Panky, and I'm not going to finish the rest of your name, Mr. Panky, and you know why. But I love you. I do love you. Harry B, Patty W, Brianna G, and most recently, Ever, who left us a lovely note on Patreon. Thank you, Ever.
Thank
A
you.
little bit of love for you all. Blue Lodge on the, apples, said A+, plus.
We haven't had that in a hot second, right?
Yeah, but not only that, it's 3 pluses.
A+++. Oh, wait,
You could
that
have
was
spared
4.
a
I
few
can't
more
count.
pluses. Like, if you're already given 3,
Hey.
why be greedy? I know, I shouldn't.
Sam
I'm
is
not
greedy,
here enough
Blue
to
I will
make.
take all the pluses, all the love it.
Olivia accepts your offer of pluses. And I accept your offer of stars on Spotify. You guys have been helping us to keep pace. We are desperately chasing after that unnamed conspiracy podcast who has still more reviews than us. But we are chasing him down. We're going to catch him. I feel it. I feel it's going to happen. I want to also just give a shout out and some love to our design contest winners. We had some wonderful pieces of art sent to us, and we're going to be turning this into some new merch and sending it out to patrons and friends and making it available on the website. That is Terry Frew, my buddy Terry, who actually came to the college and did a workshop here with my students last semester. Terry is fantastic. Josh Russ, also fantastic. And Mr. Leslie Sims from across the ocean. Appreciate it. Beautiful lizard, snake, and occult-based art from you all.
Y'all crushed it.
Yeah, thank you so much. All right, Olivia.
We're closing. We were open and now we're closing. We're closing. It is closed.
All right, Sam, you're going to have to be patient with me because I have to explain white supremacy. I believe it's incumbent on me before I get into the Christianity, and I know you're excited about Christian identity and all that, but let's do the Klan first, shall we?
Let's do it.
Boo. Yeah, Olivia will provide the sound effects. So the number of people who belong to a Christian identity church is difficult to estimate, in part because so many are so far in the cultural underground. There may be as few as 2,000 or as many as 50,000. As I said to Sam, to understand the history of modern Christian racism, though, we have to start with the history of organized racism in the United States, the birthplace of Christian identity. Certainly racism exists in other parts of the world, but we hold the unique title of having invented Christian identity. To a certain extent. The UK is to blame a little bit. We'll get there.
Yeah.
By 1867, the first iteration of the Ku Klux Klan had coalesced around the project of prolonging the oppression of African Americans, particularly in the formerly Confederate South, but ultimately throughout the entire country. Then, just after World War II, the Neo-Nazis emerged with a distinctly anti-Semitic message. Both groups hated most non-whites, most non-Protestants, and all communists, but each had their specific targets. In 1864, the American Confederacy lost the Civil War to the United States. I'm sorry if that's a spoiler for some of you. Sorry. What followed?
Someone out there is like,
oh, no!
what?
I was halfway through the movie Gettysburg.
That's how they're getting their history.
I didn't even finish the tour yet.
Hollywood. How close are we to the Mason-Dixon line? Some people might disagree.
Yeah, you're right. You're
Lord
right.
above.
Speaking of Gettysburg. The first time, the KKK was founded and refounded 3 times. The first time was on Christmas Eve, 1865, when 6 Confederate officers gathered to form a goofy little social club with no explicit project whatsoever, let alone white supremacy. Isn't that fun? They were just like...
They're just hanging out.
Yeah.
That's how Proud Boys started.
It was just a goofy little social
Yeah, it was
club.
a goofy, like that guy Gavin McInnes, right? He had like started the Proud Boys. Yeah, he had started. It was just like a men's club. That's how he had talked about it. And now they're like fighting Antifa in the streets and stuff like that.
Or so they say.
Yeah.
Anyhow. What was I going to say? So that's just goofy little social club. Within 2 years, though, this club had metamorphosed into a channel for supremacist rage and racial violence. So similar path. They terrorized black voters and white advocates for African Americans' rights. They targeted black teachers, black leaders, politicians, hosted lynching parties where they advertised in local newspapers and sold refreshments. Horrifying.
And sold refreshments.
Yeah, seriously. They had like popcorn and stuff and killed people.
Yeah, it's like...
That's like...
Take your family out to the theater. No, take your family out
to a lynching.
To a lynching.
Yeah.
That, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I guess you can think about it a bit like public executions, but that was a literally medieval practice. And these people are guilty of nothing. So, yeah. Anyhow. They burned black churches and schools, shot into homes, and were responsible for hundreds, if not thousands, of murders in the course of only a few years. I got to put an asterisk on that. I was talking about those medieval executions. Those people were often also not guilty of anything. If we think about the witch burnings and all. Anyway.
I feel like they at least had a pseudo trial.
Yeah, there was something to it.
There was some kind of
effort.
like, this is just like straight up grabbing people and
Well, I mean, they're guilty of the crime of being black.
Sure, but there's no like even fake like resemblance of like a justice.
It's often
system.
being black and aspiring to any kind of leadership or being in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Right.
Asterisk on that. It is not a crime to be black.
Yes, we firmly believe that here on the Cult
Sam is not
Confessions.
suggesting. Where were we? Yeah, we got to be real careful today. Their darkly absurd lynching parties suggested the Klan's weakness. They were so egregiously and flamboyantly evil that they prompted an enormous backlash. I mean, we're sitting here saying this ghoulish, but in 1870, people were like, that's horrible and ghoulish. So it's not just us looking back. It was horrible at the time. Nobody was looking at it and saying, oh, yeah, of course.
You can't say they're from a different time.
Right. No, they were not. The people at that time were disgusted by this. So there was a huge backlash. Democratic politicians ended up having to distance themselves from the Klan as such. In 1871, President Ulysses S. Grant signed the Ku Klux Klan Act, which captured and prosecuted Klan members as insurrectionists.
Whoa.
Yeah. But the damage had already been done. By 1877, the Klan and other secret supremacist groups they inspired had helped to install the Democratic Party, which at the time was the party of white supremacy in the state governments of North Carolina, Virginia, Georgia, Texas, Arkansas, Alabama, Mississippi, South Carolina, Florida, and Louisiana. So when we think about Jim Crow laws and all that kind of stuff, it's difficult to separate all that legislation, because that was all legislated, from the KKK and their activities up through 1871. So nice try, Ulysses S. Grant.
Nice try.
Otherwise, you were pretty cool. And that tomb's really neat.
That tomb is pretty sick.
Yeah. And his autobiography is actually pretty cool. Anyway. The first Klan did not actually wear the now iconic white robes or burn any crosses. So the 19th century Klan was not engaged in any of that kind of activity. They were up to their own weird, awful stuff. In 1915, William Joseph Simmons revived the Klan and based his image of what the Klan would be on historical accounts of the 19th century Klan, but also the fictional The Klansman, a historical novel of the Ku Klux Klan. This is where the robes and the crosses came from. It's actually a fictionalization of the Klan.
Is this like also with, what is it, A Birth of the
Birth of a
Nation?
Nation.
Okay, yeah,
The
because I
Birth
know
of a
that
Nation.
was like a big thing with, which I don't know if anyone's ever seen. I, for a class, had to
YouTube it.
watch. Yeah, we had to watch a lot of it, and it's like, it's very painful.
D.W. Griffiths is largely responsible for popularizing the book with his movie, Birth of a Nation.
Okay, so it is the same. Gotcha.
Yep. Birth of a Nation is regarded as one of the most innovative and horrifying movies of the silent era, sort of like Leni Riefenstahl's Nazi Triumph of the Will. Triumph of the Will, I think in both cases, it's propaganda for a kind of fascism.
Fascism, oh yeah.
Yeah. I remember when I watched Triumph of the Will, I drank an entire bottle of wine, which I don't often do, but to get through Triumph of the Will, because it's beautiful. The imagery is beautiful. And you can see, this horrible little man getting up on this podium and all these people cheering for him and the ritual and all of it. And the filming is all quite beautiful, but inside is this horrible, disgusting content that's killing millions of people. Yeah. Innovative form, terrifying content. These imagined Klansmen were arch-conservative vigilantes, defending prohibition, fighting divorcees and adulterers, and persecuting Catholics and Jews for their non-Protestant religious convictions. That's the sort of fictionalized hero Klansman.
They're busy.
Right.
Busy boys.
Even to us sounds not so good. The second Klan, the early 20th century Klan, boasted as many as 5 million members, many of them in the industrial North. Yeah.
That's painful.
Like towards Boston?
Yeah.
Because I know Boston has a bit of a racism problem, and you can find chapters of like skinhead Nazis working within Boston. And it's like, Boston, Massachusetts, like, oh, it's the North, it's liberal city, all of that. But no, in the underbelly, you can find big Klan groups.
I'm going to tell this story. I've debated whether I should tell this story just because as a quasi-spiritualist, I don't like to anger my ancestors. But I'll say I had an ancestor who had a hood. And when that ancestor died, they asked that the hood be torn up and burned or destroyed. Mm-hmm. So my ancestor repented of their involvement in the Klan. It may have been this Klan or it may have been the slightly later Klan. Probably it's this Klan, actually. And my family, it was my father's family, they didn't want to do it. But my dad happened to have it, and so he took a pair of scissors, lit up the grill, and unceremoniously destroyed the hood.
That's kind of awesome.
Yeah, nice.
People who you would think don't have this in their background, right? I grew up in Trenton, New Jersey.
Yeah.
Very multicultural part of the world, part of the country. It can be in your background because it was literally through the whole country. It wasn't just the South.
Interesting, too, the idea that they were like, oh, I can repent.
I think a lot of people did, too. I think a lot of people joined the Klan. They thought it was cool, and then they're like, oh, no.
Yeah.
That was not cool.
Yeah.
Because it would have been, I don't know, the 70s when this... So it's not like we've had Obama
kind of
or anything.
Like Nazis. It's kind of a little similar where a lot of people, I think...
They said, oops, that was not a good thing
was
that
not
I was
our
a part
best.
of.
Yeah.
I'm not ashamed of that chapter, or I am ashamed of that chapter of my life.
Right.
So, internal fighting and division led to rapid decline during the Great Depression, and the Second Klan fizzled out by the end of the Second World War. A folklorist, Stetson Kennedy, helped to bring the Klan down when he infiltrated their ranks and leaked their code words to the FBI, the media, and the Superman radio show. This is true.
Was it just because, like, they were all in the war? Is that why they weren't
the war
active?
helped to take it down, yeah, but also this guy, he leaked all their codes, and so anyone could infiltrate them, particularly the FBI. But I guess the joke of it was that it even aired on national radio in a Superman episode.
Yeah. That type of stuff happens all the time, like a sleeper cell kind of guy. Like one just completed, it was like a 13-year, it was in England, a 13-year mole investigation where they stayed in these groups and they basically recorded who was in these white supremacist groups, these fascist groups, and like they were so committed to it they got like beaten up by anti-fascist like protesters, pepper sprayed, all of that, just so it's insane. But I just read about it. It's really incredible, like just 13 years of commitment.
It's like spiritually beautiful to me, that kind of self-sacrifice.
Yeah,
that's what I was just thinking, that they just like put 13 years of their life that they're now going to be very confused about, I imagine, to some extent.
Yeah, deep humility to do that kind of thing. Yeah. The Third Klan arose in response to the American Civil Rights Movement. In 1963, Klan members assassinated NAACP organizer Medgar Evers. In 1964, they committed the Mississippi burning murders of 3 civil rights activists, 2 white and 1 black, James Chaney, Andrew Goodman, and Michael Schwerner. The FBI took a special interest in bringing down the Mississippi Klan. Special Agent in Charge Roy Moore established an office in Jackson and succeeded in locating the bodies and identifying at least some of the perpetrators. 8 Klan members were convicted of the crime and 10 more alleged to have been involved. In 1965, they murdered Violet Liuzzi, a Detroit mother of 5 transporting protesters to the Civil Rights March from Selma to Montgomery, and the following year firebombed and killed NAACP leader Vernon Dahmer. So, another period of hotbed activity. The modern KKK has attempted to put on a less savagely murderous face, but for now, if we're looking at the 90s, years some of you might remember. In the 1990s, David Duke, you know this guy?
Yeah.
Have you heard of him, Olivia? David Duke?
That's such a generic name. Also, don't trust a man with 2 first names, so...
Is Duke a first
I'm
name?
thinking about
It can
that.
be.
Yeah, or a dog's first name.
Yeah. Don't trust
Don't
a dog
trust a
with 2
dog.
first names.
Damn, but I'm just a man with 2
My
daughters.
dog only has 1 name.
Good, then I'll maybe trust it. Anyway, David Duke.
David Duke. David Duke was one of the Klan's leaders, or imperial wizards. And he argued that the rights of the white majority had been imperiled by anti-white policies like affirmative action and the doctrine of racial equality, which he regarded as false. He ran advertisements, spoke on college campuses, and always wore a business suit instead of a hood. But Duke's genteel Klan proved unappealing to its core membership, and he eventually left to form the NAAWP. Think about that for a second.
White people?
The National Association for the Advancement of White People, yeah.
They've already advanced. They did it. Congrats.
Mission accomplished, yeah.
Disband the whole thing.
Day one on the first meeting.
We did it.
We did it. It's over. Go home.
You guys can go home now.
Yeah, David Duke is like this movement towards like a very well-polished and like air of academia type of white supremacist and fascist, and it's really effective. You know, they can act like they're not these horrible things, and they can like dress themselves up, polish themselves up, and like make these very rational appearing arguments. But it, you know, at the bottom line, it's all a ruse. They're going to say like their rhetoric in like the most like kind of like moderate way they can. But ultimately, they're pushing you towards like this far right, this awfulness, and so like it's scary because sometimes people fall for it all the time. They're like, oh, he's just an educated guy. Why can't he have his free speech, you know, open?
Duke did not stand alone as the leader of the KKK. In fact, the third iteration of the KKK was actually many little Ks. Perhaps the most, isn't that cute? Perhaps the most
burn it with fire.
Perhaps the most popular were Bill Wilkinson's Invisible Empire of the KKK, which pursued an overt campaign of racial violence. They attacked anti-racist demonstrators with automatic shotguns and attracted 2,500 members as opposed to Duke's 1,500. So we're also looking at
90s.
Little groups of people. Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is the 90s.
But just a little bit later.
Yeah, yeah. But Wilkinson, it turns out, was an informant for the FBI.
Oh.
And according to FBI reports, up to a fifth of the entire Klan, let me say again, there were only 4,000 of them, really. Up to a fifth of them were informants, resulting in a culture of paranoia that remains a hallmark of white separatist underground to this day.
What?
Jeez.
It's still the case that if you read like about the Ruby Ridge massacre and stuff, there's a lot of interrogating of new members and people who try to join these Christian identity groups, whether or not they're informants and FBI agents.
Yeah.
The assumption is always that you are. Everyone who says, hey, I'm really interested in your supremacy, they're like, so you're probably an FBI agent. Because actually you probably are. Odds are you are an FBI agent.
We got 5 guys standing out there. One of them
belongs.
So it's not like creating a culture of like delusion and paranoia at all.
Yeah, I mean, if you go to one of those rallies, you probably look out at the crowd, and half of them are just there for the government. They don't believe. They're there to spy on the other half.
Then it's kind of like, I don't know why that makes me feel weird.
Because it does. The government sort of makes them look like there's more of them.
That's what I'm getting at. Like they're making it seem like a bigger thing. Not that it's not a big thing, but they're just adding to the facade of it being a large.
I mean, they're capable of doing some terroristy stuff. I shouldn't say terrorist stuff.
Yeah.
So that's why the FBI, I think, keeps such close tabs on them. It's the violence they're capable of.
Can they not have less people keeping tabs, I guess? I'm like, no? Does
Once you're
everyone
in,
have like a buddy?
Maybe it's like, you send in George, and George is like, I'm with them now. And then George's like, I can't get out. I need some help. And then you send in Pete, and then he gets stuck. And
then John's following.
All right, you want to be a part? You need to recruit 2 other guys.
And he just keeps pulling in more FBI agents.
Just flirty fishing FBI agents.
In 1959, George Lincoln Rockwell founded the American Nazi Party. He was by no means the first fascist in the United States, though. In the 1930s, William Dudley Pelley amassed over 15,000 silver shirts. The silver shirts did not invent anti-Semitism, which is fairly ancient, and they didn't even bring it to the U.S. Henry Ford and his Dearborn Independent is largely responsible for popularizing anti-Jewish propaganda in industrialized America. Rockwell's party was much smaller than the silver shirts, and only a couple hundred members joined, and a few thousand names were on his mailing list. But his influence was much greater than his membership in the way he reconceptualized American fascism, not as a collection of Aryan Hitler fanboys, but rather as a pan-white nationalist racist movement. Although Rockwell made overture to sympathetic organizations, many considered his Nazi fascism un-American. Imagine that. His influence was largely ideological rather than strategic or practical. He was born in Bloomington, Illinois, way back in 1918. His parents were both performers. His father was an English-Scottish vaudeville comedian, and his mother was a German-French dancer. He studied sociology and philosophy at Brown before enlisting in the Naval Air Corps as a pilot flying anti-submarine missions in the South Atlantic and Pacific. Got involved in politics after the war as part of the campaign to have World War II General Douglas MacArthur elected president. He was inspired by the anti-communist speeches of Joseph McCarthy and the anti-Semitic newspaper Common Sense, and came to believe in a global super conspiracy managed by a secret group of Jewish communists. Hitler...
cultural Bolshevism or whatever it's called. That's what...
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, well, now it's like Jordan Peterson is talking about, like...
You mean he's anti-cultural Bolshevism? Yeah. Yeah, Jordan Peterson.
He's like the cultural Marxist. It's just the same thing.
Yes, Bolshevism no longer makes any sense, I guess, to people. But for some reason, we all have read Karl Marx these days. No, we haven't. Hitler.
It's not fun to read.
No. Hitler, said Rockwell, who had incidentally actively fought for the Allies against Germany. Remember, Rockwell fought for the Allies against Germany. And he said, Hitler truly understood the Jewish menace, but the Jews had subverted his plans by fooling the Americans and British into fighting against him. So I guess he's regretting that he had been fooled into fighting Hitler.
Dang, some people regret being fascist. Some regret being
fighting
fascists.
Yeah. That's not how we remember the greatest generation, is it? After a series of dream encounters with Adolf himself...
Okay.
Sam needs me to say that again.
Drop that.
I'll say it one more time. After a series of dream encounters with Adolf Hitler... Rockwell decided to take his theories public. Somebody on iTunes or something's like, I don't like this show. Rob repeats himself. I only repeat myself when it's important, man.
Or when I'm like, excuse me, what was that?
I repeat myself on command. Otherwise, freaking iTunes. In July 1958, he led a protest of the so-called Jewish menace at the White House. In October... a synagogue was... Olivia can't take this.
Sorry.
It's funny.
I just am like... Oh, God.
It's weird to think about, yeah. In October, a synagogue was bombed in Atlanta, and Rockwell's supporters were captured nearby, leading to a mass backlash against Rockwell that forced him briefly underground. He reemerged defiant, recruiting a team of fascist cosplay stormtroopers and mounting an illuminated swastika on the roof of his house in Arlington, Virginia, a suburb of the District of Columbia.
He got them from underground?
Well, I mean, they weren't like turnips.
I know. You don't just grow racist stormtroopers underground?
I think that's the plot of one of the Star Warses.
Yeah.
Savannah, you need her to weigh in on this.
Well, we'll all just agree that was definitely the plot of Star Wars 8. The Star Wars-ening.
I was like, which
The turnip menace.
The turnip man. That's good. The clone turnip.
Oh my God.
Anyway, he opposed the civil rights movement, of course, on the grounds that African Americans had been fooled by the Jewish conspiracy into believing they were equal with whites, and then grew violent as a response to this supposed misconception, resulting in gradually mounting societal breakdown. So the Jews are behind everything.
Yeah, I was about to say, I love how they're still blaming
the Jews,
Jewish
yeah.
people, even for their own racism against black people.
Why Jewish people? Like, why not
Because history.
I guess it does have an ancient province. If you're going to blame somebody, it has that I don't know.
Like, what if it was
vintage racism?
Yeah, what if it was like the Mongolian globalists?
But they're not around. They're just in the steppe lands north of China. Like, who cares? Nobody's worried about the Mongolians.
It seems nice.
I mean,
peaceful.
Yeah.
Americans aren't racist, against Mongolians because they don't see them. You're only racist against people you see all the time. I guess that's the Jews. They're in so many Western communities in Europe and then in the United States. So you can point the finger. In September 1962, he awarded Roy, which you shouldn't do. Don't do that.
Keep your fingers to yourself.
Keep your fingers to yourself.
And never mind.
Leave the Jews alone.
Please,
for the love. It's enough already.
They've taken so much.
In September 1962, he awarded Roy James, one of his stormtroopers, a medal for punching Martin Luther King Jr. in the face in Birmingham.
Okay, well...
While he spent most of his fascist career... I mean, what does that medal look like? While he spent most of his... Who prints that medal? Anyway, while he spent most of his fascist career attracting attention to his views in the late 1960s, he began to turn toward organizing and electoral politics, but his plans were cut short when he was shot by a sniper, leaving an Arlington laundromat in August of 1967.
I'm happy with that.
Okay. You're welcome. Spoiler alert.
One thing right in history.
Nobody made that movie. Okay. I'm sure. I wonder what happened to that guy. That guy probably went to jail, though. You can't just snipe people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean.
Maybe he had a light sentence.
They were like.
Well, imagine.
What if he just vanished?
Ooh,
Or
that's
he's
cool.
a time traveler.
What if he also worked for the FBI?
So George Rockwell was going to like take over America, and this guy time traveled back like the Terminator and eliminated
just
him.
Sniped him. Good.
Not on my watch.
Yeah, I love it. So Hitler really was killed, and that like we all time traveled back to kill Hitler. That really happened in America.
It's all coming
American
together.
Hitler was shot. It's possible.
Yeah,
I don't know if it's
time
possible.
machines only work in America, and you can only time travel in America.
I
Because
thought
of Mormons.
Hitler was
It's because of the
the
Mormons.
in Antarctica
You
still.
want to blame someone?
It's
Blame
the Mormons. They
Well.
know. They know where the Holy Land is. It's the place where time travel works, and it's Utah. It's unnecessarily. We're being unnecessarily hostile to Mormons. I am. I'm sorry. I apologize to the
We
Church of
love-
Latter-day Saints.
I love some Mormons, you know?
Christian identity wasn't born out of the Klan or American Nazi Party, but it was fertilized by the culture of racism fostered within these organizations, which allowed it to grow and thrive on American soil. Historian Nicholas Goodrick Clark tells us that the origins of Christian identity go back, like so many institutions in the U.S., to the U.K. In the early decades of the 19th century, John Wilson and Edward Hine, among others, preached that ethnic Brits were descended from the 10 lost tribes of Israel, a view that came to be called British Israelism.
Oh, Lord above. Here we go.
Yeah. You're not listening to an OC episode unless you're getting some of this fun.
Yep.
British supremacy on the global stage as an imperial power demonstrated that the British were, in fact, the chosen people of God. I mean, look at how long Queen Elizabeth lived,
96, girl.
right? If that's not a sign, I don't know what is.
Isn't the oldest person in the world black, though?
Yeah, she was like 100. Is she still alive?
Really?
Yeah,
She was like 113 or
Yeah,
something.
she was
good for her.
black.
Where did she
Yeah.
live?
So
In the
Oh,
US?
I don't know.
it must have been. It had to have been the U.S. Maybe.
I
You
think
would think.
so.
Someone Google
We're
it.
being
and
a little
comment it.
arrogant about
This is
that.
like-
but-
Yeah, I
I
know.
remember
Our
seeing
diet
that
does
you-
not is not conducive enough.
But it's possible. Maybe she just ate her own way. Anyhow, British supremacy. Oh, what was I saying? The British 10 tribes in the UK and America should join, they said, the 2 not lost tribes of Jews in Israel to reclaim the Holy Land and fulfill God's plan. Well, this seems like an odd start to a movement that would target the world's Jews as demonic conspirators. There were some quirks to British Israelism that opened that door. First, John Wilson believed that the Jewish tribes of Judah had intermarried with the Edomites, a spiritually inferior group. Back in the Garden of Eden, Eve had been sexually seduced by a humanoid serpent devil, which is the real meaning of the whole apple story. That's just an allegory for serpent sex. It's the serpent seed theory. It's not unique to Christian identity or British Israelitism, but anyhow. I'm fascinated by this stuff. I love the reinterpretations of Eden. So anyway, then she gave birth to Cain. Cain then joined an inferior race of pre-Adamic people and fathered a satanic seed line that, you guessed it, intermingled with the 2 Jewish tribes. The 10 lost British tribes, by contrast, preserved their pure blood. Since they believed themselves to be the true Jews following the ideology of British Israelism, Christian identity followers observe the Jewish Sabbath and Purim and give their children Old Testament names and observe the dietary laws of Deuteronomy and Leviticus.
All I can think about right now is Jesus with like just the worst British accent.
Well, because of British Israelism, though, I mean, we just need to really let this sink in. Christian identity, white supremacists observe a lot of Jewish tradition.
Well, I also like, as soon as you started bringing up like the Cain stuff, it reminded me of just like in school how we would learn about like, they would say like black people, like a reason for enslaving them was because they had the blood of Cain, that they,
Yeah, that was one argument.
So it's interesting to me that they're also like,
The Jews
the
are
Jewish
lumped in the same
connection,
way.
and then
Yeah.
it's just like, it seems like it's just, also, where's Abel? Fuck him.
He died.
He died.
Oh, but yeah, but
Cain
like,
killed him.
He didn't have time to reproduce. Is that what you're saying? Probably
guess,
not. He was so
yeah.
pure. He died a virgin.
Mormons have a similar theory. Like, there's like an old Mormon cartoon that basically says there was a battle in heaven, and those who sided with the devil were cursed with black skin on earth. Yeah, it's like...
Yeah.
yeah.
Sorry, Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Scholar Matthias Gardell identifies two variants of Christian identity. Hardcore believers hold that Jews are literally the progeny of Satan who made war with God in space. Softcore believers are willing to accept this as allegorical. So,
I'll accept this, but only as an allegory.
not substantially better, yeah. The hardcore believer holds that the white person's bodily fluids need to be protected from those of the other races since only the white race contains the divine spark which is passed through the generations. Interracial marriage kills the spark and is considered an egregious sin. The softcore believer views the Luciferian space battle as a metaphor for God's preference for Jacob over Esau. Esau was Jacob's brother, who was sexually attracted to the mongrel races. I'm quoting there, mongrel races. Esau's children, Edom, or the children of Edom, have been in a constant battle ever since for supremacy over God's favorite people, the children of Jacob. During the apocalypse, God will wipe out the race of Edom, and Jacob's race shall inherit the earth. In the meantime, the enemy reigns and has, since the Jews took control of the Roman Empire and used the empire's power to distort Christian teaching, removing the doctrines of Aryan Jesus and all of this bloodline stuff from the Bible. Got me?
Yep.
Sure.
Following that? Okay. I don't want to lose you anywhere here.
No, this sucks.
Yeah.
Jews have controlled mainstream Christianity ever since, and Christian identity believers look forward to the day when they can assist God in a racial cleansing of the earth. So only Christian identity has the true Christianity. All other Christians are faking it, and they may not even realize it. The movement's anti-Semitism was promoted most successfully by William J. Cameron, who worked for Henry Ford as his press relations manager and was the editor of Ford's anti-Semitic magazine, The Dearborn Independent. As editor, Cameron was responsible for introducing America to the false protocols of the Elders of Zion, which introduced the idea that a conspiracy of Jewish people was secretly manipulating world events. Cameron's ideas inspired Pastor Wesley Smith, who founded the Anglo-Saxon Christian congregation in Lancaster, California. Smith preached that the white race were originally divine beings who assisted God with his creation until Lucifer and his demons attacked Earth in their spaceships. The whites helped to bring Lucifer down, and some of the demons that fell to Earth survived. The African races fell with the demons as their servants, and the Jews were the demons' children. White Aryan descendants had a responsibility to fight and overcome the inheritors of the pre-Adamic bloodline and the impure Cain bloodline. Smith interpreted the Whore of Babylon from the Book of Revelations as a metaphor for the Jewish conspiracy, which has enslaved the white world economically and would be destroyed in an apocalypse. He founded the Christian Defense League and chose Richard Butler as its first president. And Butler is where we pick up the story. Butler's born in Colorado in 1918, studies aeronautical engineering, and takes a job with the Consolidated Vultee Aircraft Company, who posted him in Bangalore, where he worked for the Royal Indian Air Force during the Second World War. Despite working on the side of the Allies, much like Rockwell, he sympathized with Hitler.
What is this? Is this like a common thing?
I mean, among neo-Nazis, yeah.
Well, sure. But
Like, how did some guy from Colorado, like just the average dude, studies aerospace engineering?
Yeah. Pretty smart guy, right?
Yeah, it's like you got to be smart to do that. Think critically, you know. But
Do math.
Yeah, it's like, how did you end up as a white supremacist?
I do want to say, Sam, and I love all my STEM people out there. You guys always get all the love and all the money and the grants. Go science, technology, engineering, and math. They generally are a little short on humanistic thought, and when it comes to converting you to a system of belief, it is humanistic and ethical, philosophical thought that's
my
defending
wheelhouse.
you. Yeah, not your knowledge of calculus.
No, the STEM bros in my ethics class said wild stuff.
That's why we need STEAM.
Yeah, you got to have a little art in there. You'll be all right, my STEM friends. If you just listen to Occult Confessions, we're going to get your humanities fix on right here. Stave off those Hitler converters.
Yeah, well.
Anyhow, I will try to make sense of this a little bit. His posting in India had exposed him to India's caste system, which struck him as a great idea to try and bring home.
Come on.
Whew, that's not what you want to bring home.
Butler's not the only one. Others on the occult side of fascism, namely Miguel Serrano and Savitri Devi, were similarly enamored of a system of the Buddha, a caste system that the Buddha famously attempted to reform and remove 500 years before the Common Era. So there have been critiques of the caste system going back a whole long time, and an entire religion is founded, at least in part, on that.
But let's take it home.
Yeah, let's bring it back to America. On his return from India, Butler came to idolize Hitler as second only to Jesus Christ in general greatness.
That's, even objectively, if I don't believe in Jesus, just like based off of like things that they've done,
Jesus?
like if we're greatest warrioring, like Jesus versus like Adolf Hitler, like...
You're going to go with Jesus?
Well, Hitler
you heard it here,
stand a
folks.
chance.
Similar things have been said about Trump by modern day evangelicals.
You guys are really trying to...
I'm sorry.
Hey, that one was Sam. That wasn't me.
No, that was me. I know it was me, but it's just a statement of fact. I know I said it rhetorically and I was implying something about it, but similar things have been said about Trump as like the second coming. Like it's funny on J6, the amount of like Jesus loves you, God loves you, or like repent sinners signs and stuff like that were at there while Trump supporters were at the Capitol building. You know, it's like, whoa, it seems like white Christians have this weird thing where they love to raise up a politician, not with Jesus, because ideologically they can't do that, but as close as they can get to
Jesus comes first.
Yeah.
But you know who's second? My guy.
My guy.
Yeah. While working for Lockheed Martin on the L-1011 jumbo jet, 1011, I don't know, he used his pilot's license to begin making regular flights to the Pacific Northwest, where he fantasized about establishing a white homeland. His dream came to fruition when he retired to the Northwest at 55 and in 1977 founded the Church of Jesus Christ Christian and the Aryan Nations Compound on Hayden Lake in the panhandle of Idaho as a white racial utopia. Still,
they can keep the panhandle.
Yeah, I don't
I mean, that is the hotbed of all of this activity.
Idaho.
You don't want to go to Idaho? Because this is where it's at. Not all of Idaho. It's a lovely potato-laden state, but yeah, the panhandle.
Here.
There's a lot of this going on up there. On the compound, members observed strict sexual roles, with women doing the cooking, cleaning, and nurturing, and the men carrying the guns.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, that's just standard kind of like...
Sexism.
It really is. Like, it is just standard. Like, I'm not surprised by it. I was a believer in that. Like,
we can't give women guns.
I love, though, that it's here. You do all that. I want to carry this around a while.
I'm going to watch you do all that
Make
while
sure
I
you're
hold
safe.
my gun.
Hot take number 2. Most men don't want a partner. They just want a mommy.
Well, I'll support you there, honestly.
The compound was guarded by men in paramilitary uniforms because of previous attacks. On the 1st of July 1998, these troopers chased Victoria Keenan and her son Jason down the road outside the compound after they'd stopped briefly in front of the Aryan Nations to retrieve something that had fallen out of their car.
God forbid.
Right? Butler's henchmen fired at the mother and son, shot out a tire, and forced them into a ditch. They then assaulted the Keenans and let them go. The Keenans, represented by a team from the Southern Poverty Law Center, sued Butler and won a settlement for $6 million.
Oh, hell yeah.
That effectively put an end to the Aryan Nations compound.
Dang. I mean, go off, but like, also what?
Butler's most damning legacy were the people he inspired to commit horrific acts of violence in the name of Christian identity. Robert J. Matthews began to assemble his Bruder Schweigen, Silent Brothers, or the Order also just called the Order, I should say.
Because that is a weird word to say.
Easier to remember, yeah.
Sorry, German listeners.
Matthews began forming that at the Aryan Nations Aryan World Congresses in 1982 and 1983. Inspired by neo-Nazi physicist William Luther Pierce's novel The Turner Diaries about a race war, the Bruder Schweigen hoped to establish an Aryan homeland on the Order of Butler's compound, but much larger, and in the Pacific Northwest. So like Oregon, I guess. They funded their operation through counterfeiting money, bank robberies, and armored car robberies. In Ukiah, California, they stole $3.6 million from a Brinks car. Yeah, they're not messing around.
Holy cow.
Yeah. They bombed a synagogue in Boise.
Oh, jeez.
And I think most famously murdered talk radio host Alan Berg. Berg was ethnically Jewish.
Familiar. That sounds so familiar.
The movie Talk Radio, I believe, is about him. Oh, I don't know. Or about this story, anyway. It's a fictionalization of this. I think it's Oliver Stone. Berg was ethnically Jewish and outspokenly liberal, which made him a target for the order. David Lane and Bruce Pierce were convicted of violating his civil rights, also of conspiracy and racketeering, but not of homicide, and they were sentenced to 190 and 252 years in prison, respectively. David Lane may sound familiar from our earlier episode on the neo-Nazi occult for founding a pagan white supremacist order from prison. In June 1984, Order member Tom Martinez was arrested for passing counterfeit bills at a liquor store. When Matthews told him of his plan to kill the liquor store owner, Martinez gave himself over to the FBI and became an informant.
Are they doing like specifically criminal activity to get money because they can't do anything else?
They're raising money. Well, I guess they think it's the quickest way to raise money.
They don't. YouTube wasn't a thing.
Or Indiegogo.
Well, I'm just like,
You couldn't podcast.
They couldn't have a
insert
Patreon.
Kim Kardashian being
I don't think Patreon.
people just don't want to work these days.
Yes, yeah. They couldn't start an Instagram.
Robbing banks is a full-time job.
It takes up your time. Anyhow, my buddy Martinez here, not my buddy, but he did become an informant and brought the organization down. Matthews died during a shootout at his home on Whidbey Island outside of Seattle, where federal agents set fire to his house. His death day, December the 8th, has since been celebrated as the Day of the Martyrs by white nationalists.
Of course.
Wait, can federal agents light a house on fire to get a bad guy? Like, that doesn't seem like something they can do.
It was a different time, man.
Like, who's to say how a fire
I feel like
starts?
they would do it today, and there'd be videos of it, and then, like, we'd all be outraged online. And then, like, after a week, the news cycle would go through, and we just wouldn't talk about it anymore.
Well, I mean, you have to bear in mind, this is, 1984? So we're going to, like, still ahead of us is all the business in Waco and, Ruby Ridge, and there's going to be a lot of these conflicts. The guy that wrote Behold the Pale Horse with Milton Cooper is going to die in a shootout with federal agents. Like, it's just what happens in the 90s. So this is one of the first.
And the fucking LA race riots started in the 90s.
Oh, that's true, yeah.
That's all I have to say on the subject of Christian identity. Final thoughts? Olivia, you go first. Sam has so many things to say.
I'm just like trying to think back. Well, because we both come from church backgrounds, different church backgrounds. Mine was just Methodist. It's pretty lax. But I was just like, I feel like the racism was super, like there was 100% racism in the church growing up, I remember, but it was like low key. Like,
well, I don't want to imply that Christians as a matter of course were racist. This is a specific sect of Christianity.
I'm just saying, like, I feel like that's a thing, though.
Yeah. And Christianity is often, I mean, the black church is a huge part of Southern culture.
Well, that's why I think
and Northern culture.
I just remember there were literally like black people in our church growing up that got like pushed out, basically.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but they did it in such a way where they were like, oh, well, you can't be part of the youth group leaders. Oh, you can't do this. Oh, you can't do that. And then they just kind of like
they got the hint.
Left. Yeah. But
so you think that some of this Christian identity thought undergirds that, or they're just being
I think
racist?
A lot of it, I think, lends.
If you were a pool club or a tennis club, would it be any different?
I think it's like specifically the people that these are like older people too. Maybe I should clarify. Like the church I went to was predominantly like old.
Not
people.
that we're being ageist.
I'm being a little ageist.
Young people can be racist too.
Sure, obviously, but like, I don't know. Maybe
I see
I'm
what
just
you
talking
mean.
out my ass.
No,
but
I see what you mean. I mean, it
feel
happened.
like,
you witnessed it.
And it's just like I feel like if you're not entirely in their eyes, like abiding by like what they see, because like even like beyond racism, like my mom got pushed out of the church too. As soon as
they were just hyper judgy.
Yeah, as soon as they like see anything is like anything you're doing is like related to a sin or anything, like even instead of like helping and being like a part of the community or blah blah, it's not. It's like they force people out.
Yeah, you
instead
get
of
othered.
But you suspect that race would have been the other. That's they didn't have to do anything. They just had to not be white.
And it wasn't. I don't even know if it was like related to ideology or if it was just them being older people from the Eastern Shore being like, we don't like you. It's kind of hard to like, but it was stuff like they wouldn't give a reason why like they couldn't do certain things for lack of like a better, because like my mom was really close friends with them and it like, I don't know, it was like a whole thing. But
I see what you mean.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, I guess I don't see like, we don't see like the shootouts and stuff like that anymore, and I don't see like overt Christian identity, but I see things similar to it. I think I talked to you a little bit about this before, Rob, when I just kind of popped in that one day. I had attended this men's Bible study. It was a Protestant Bible study. I would describe it as evangelical. In Eastern Shore of Maryland. Like the town, like a little bit south of Salisbury. I forget the name.
We don't want to call them out completely, so yes, we'll leave the.
They will not.
Damn, should I be calling out the church?
No. They will not be listening to this podcast.
Fair enough. Still, we don't want to libel charges.
You will see like this because like at the base of a lot of like white supremacist stuff is a revisionist history, outright conspiracy theories, and like an inability to have rational conversation. It doesn't matter how many times I debunk a white supremacist on their made up history, on their weird like measuring skulls, their pseudosciences and stuff like that. It's not about the content of what they're saying, but the act of saying it. Because at some point, like we're going to platform them at some point, and we're going to go like, bring your crazy theories onto the show, like talk about it in the marketplace of free ideas and stuff like that. And they're saying something that's just like wild. They could be saying today is Wednesday. And I'm stealing this from Philosophy Tube on YouTube. Okay. They could be saying today is Wednesday when it's inappropriate to say today is Wednesday.
Because it's not Wednesday.
It's not Wednesday. And they're wrong. And they know that it's not Wednesday. They'll go like, oh, today's Wednesday on that talk show. And there's some guy in Iowa who hears that and goes, oh, today's Wednesday. The Wednesday problem. We need to ask about these Wednesday globalists, all of this stuff. It's about the act of saying it. So in the men's Bible study that I went to, there was overt racism, homophobia, sexism, bigotry that came out of these ideas from like this revisionist style of history, this kind of like denying about like slavery, how bad it was, this denial about what the Civil War was really fought about.
So you're saying because there's a cultural platform that's created for this, that it gives permission to these people in these more localized environments to espouse these views.
And then they radicalize each other. The difference in the strength of language between on a weekly basis was astounding to me. Just, the vulgar discussion of women, the outright blaming of Asian people for COVID.
Oh, so that was the time period.
Yeah, I mean, I had started going probably this time last year. So we're like right at the end of kind of COVID and all of that. And so, but even then, you would see Confederate flags on their pickup trucks in the church parking lot. You would see like all sorts of stuff, but it was funny enough. One of the guys gave me Night by Elie Wiesel and told me to read it and said, that's what's happening to us.
Oh goodness.
It's like white replacement theory, but instead of it being white replacement theory, it's Christian replacement theory.
But through the mouth of a Jew.
Yeah, but how odd. So that's where we get this revisionist kind of history. I can literally debunk him in a sentence saying, yeah, that's what happened to the Jews. This is a historical account of it by a person who it happened to. It doesn't matter.
Well, it's not an allegory. It was not intended to be read as an allegory.
No, because it's the act of saying it, and then the act of saying it becomes acting on what you say,
right?
But it's Christian identity is strange. When you look at if you go on like Southern Poverty Law Center, they have a database of white supremacist groups. A lot of them are Christian associated. A lot of them have an influence of Christian identity into them. And for me, the strangest part about it is how they read the Bible and Scripture. Protestants are always going to have that inerrant view that this thing is perfect in every way, that everything that's said in it is 100% true. There's no allegory. There's nothing like that. But then they do the allegory.
Well, you have to. The document is not consistent.
No.
It doesn't tell a consistent story.
No,
it contradicts itself.
Yeah, which is the confusing part for me, because they have this inerrant ideology about inerrancy that would require them to not do allegory, but then they do allegory to get to their racist, racist conclusions. But that leads me to think like, what's the guy's name? He wrote Fascism. Umberto Eco. I had told you about him, I think, over Instagram.
Yeah.
In one of his like descriptions of fascism, and white supremacy is always going to be fascist in some way, he says it's inherently contradictory. So to me, when they don't make any sense, it makes sense.
Then we know what we're looking at.
Yeah, we're starting to look at it because it's going to be inherently contradictory. The enemy is both strong and weak. Jews are both controlling the world, but weak enough for us to defeat them. Black people are both dangerous criminals who we need to clutch our purses around, but they're also ignorant and don't know how to do anything, and they don't know how to read.
Right.
Joe Biden is both, another hot take, but this happens all the time.
Yeah.
Joe Biden is both an orchestrating evil person who's controlling our gas prices and destroying like family values, but he's also sloppy Joe.
Right. Incapable of running the country. Except when he's Dark Brandon.
Yeah, except dude, that Dark Brandon meme is funny. I have to say that. It's funny.
The only sad thing is the White House agrees with you.
Yeah.
It sort of takes the joy out of it.
Yeah.
Oh, well. Well, that's an excellent take, Sam. I think you summed it up pretty well there. And I think that reminds us why it's important to even talk about this now. We shouldn't view this as a symptom of the past. You're at this meeting a year ago, 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about these events of the 90s. It's not behind us. These beliefs are certainly still out there, and we need to be vigilant. We need to be vigilant.
We even see it. We see it with us and QAnon people.
Sure.
Where they are very directly contradictory even in their insults about, Jewish.
You name it. Yeah. You name it. Yeah. And I think it's important, and I'm going to, since Sam has been trolling the right, I'll troll the left a little bit here. I think it's important that we don't vampirize ourselves. I mean, there are truly cultural enemies to be had out there. They exist, and they look like this. When we vampirize each other because we're not, speaking about race or sex in exactly the way that, I want you to or you want me to, then we find ourselves in an infight when we really should be targeting the groups on the far fringes who are truly distorting the culture in hateful ways.
Yeah, an interesting quote by Frederick Douglass. In one of his biographies, Frederick Douglass wrote that his slave master's conversion to Christianity only made him crueler and more hateful, saying,
I remember that, yeah.
If it had any effect on his character, it made him more cruel and hateful in all of his ways.
Mm-hmm. So we needn't have gone much further than Douglass. We could have stopped right there.
We could have just went right 15 minutes from here.
Yeah, Douglass is from the Eastern Shore, so we claim him as one of our own. Yeah. All right, Olivia, bring us on home.
I do remember what I was going to say, by the way.
Oh, go ahead.
Just like how you were saying earlier that, like, basically as white people, like, like we
have a responsibility to deal with our crazy uncle. We have a responsibility to, crazy racists.
Yeah, and it's like the whole, like, anti-racist versus, like, non-racist, like, Anyway.
Bring us on home.
I hereby adjourn and declare closed this meeting, the secret order of alchemical actors, till such time as we get together and do it again.
My name is Dr. Robert C. Thompson, joining you with Sam Steens, Shepherd of the Versed.
It is good to be back.
Good to have you back, man.
Hopefully I'll be back.
Oh, yeah.
Y'all have a wonderful, wonderful day.
And Olivia Litteral, Grand Master of the Order.
I don't know what I was going to say. I totally just blanked, but...
You should make like a cat noise.
Olivia does have a lot of kittens these days.
Just one. Just one left.
Oh, down to one?
Yeah.
Many kittens have passed through Olivia's hands. Let's say that.
That sounds... I've held many a...
And on to better things.
Never mind.
This so concludes our call series. We move on next to, we're definitely going to need Sam because we are moving on next to occult Christianity. There's going to be two ways that I approach this. First, we are going to take a good hard look at some of the more occulty beliefs within mainstream Christianity. We're going to take a look at the belief in a theocracy and whether or not Christian theocracy is a thing that Christians should pursue and want to have, so control of a government. We're going to take a good hard look at the prosperity doctrine, which is deeply occulty. And we're going to take a good hard look at Christian sex, just because I need to do that in a couple episodes on Christian sex eds. And then we're going to take a look at some of my favorite theosophist, occultist Christians, Anna Kingsford, Charles Ledbetter. And we're also going to take a look at the delightfully strange Urantia book, which belongs to to some Seventh-day Adventists who went off and did their own UFO thing. All things to look forward to here on Occult Confessions.
Bye.
Bye.